name is Joseph Carlson. This is episode 63 of The Grief of Politics, and I am joined by Avin Carroll. Avin, how you doing?
You know, um, I am okay.
I know.
Great, not awful, just, okay. Some might say fair to middling.
Yeah,
That's a
yeah. I think,
really old saying. I don't know where I picked it up.
out of all the news and podcasts and opinions I listen to, it's always like this is the beginning of the show when people have to, like, basically have a big sigh and then say, well, yeah, like, the world is terrible. I am okay type of stuff. So, this episode we will
I,
be talking. Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say I revert to the Lego Movie theme song, except I modify it a little bit.
Oh,
Everything is awesome, right? So I change it to awful.
everything is awful. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It kind of
Yeah.
makes sense. We will be talking about Iran today because it is the biggest thing. We decided to have a, how did Trump put it, an excursion into Iran, which apparently isn't what excursions are. Last time I checked. If you like what you hear and see, please like, comment, subscribe, that kind of stuff. We're trying to build the channel out. We actually did get more views than I thought on last episode. We're still trying to build stuff out. We only get like a couple likes or whatever. We haven't really got a lot of comments yet. So I'm trying to change my thumbnail game up, so maybe adds a little bit more pizzazz to our channel. But we've been doing this a long time. We do an episode once a month, and we're on episode 63, so that's a while. So yeah, we appreciate anybody that comes to the channel, listens to two middle-aged guys that slightly disagree. Like, anybody that wants that, of like, these guys don't seem so bad.
If you want more disagreement, you got to go back to the Biden administration episodes.
Yeah, which we will be covering some Democrat stuff, and we are going to talk about some local news here in Washington State. We passed a wealth tax. We'll probably be talking about that next month. I do.
If it sticks.
Yeah, I've heard some stuff about. Also, I was listening to some national, well, like a podcast, and it was like they're out of New York, and they mentioned our bill. So I was like, oh man, apparently it's a thing. So, but we're going to talk about Iran this month. Before we get into like the articles and stuff, I'm sure you, like me, Avin, have been like listening to news and stuff. And so we're going to say we're recording this on Saturday, March 14th. So everything we were saying is already out of date by the time you probably listen to this. It goes up on the 20th of a month. It is a war zone. Things do change and happen and stuff like that. But we'll try to give our opinion and stuff like that. So what, Avin, after ingesting all this news, how are you feeling about our excursion into Iran?
Ah, man. We should not have done this.
No.
I mean, we just shouldn't have done this. I think everyone on planet Earth that isn't directly advising President Trump felt like we shouldn't have done this. Tucker Carlson went to the White House to tell the president not to do this. Matt Walsh has been out there like, what are we doing?
Yeah,
Megyn Kelly, right? Like, you're not losing like fringe, sort of independent supporters of President Trump out there. Like, tons of people are like, what on earth are we doing?
Yeah, you're not losing like liberal cucks like me that are like, hey, I think war is bad.
No, we lost. That I shouldn't say we. You were lost a long time ago to the MAGA movement.
But I wasn't. Yeah, but I wasn't gonna be like, well, now I'm on. I do see, like, I really, I listen to right wing stuff too, and it is interesting to see like Glenn Beck and all them. I didn't include it in the show notes and the links I sent you because there's a lot going on. But really quickly, there was a great audio thing of Bill O'Reilly calling into Glenn Beck's radio program, and they film it. You can just hear Bill O'Reilly on the phone, and Glenn Beck's looking very concerned. And Bill O'Reilly says, well, I've talked to people in the White House, and I'm sure, that there was intelligence out there that proves that we should have done this. And I'm sure the White House wouldn't mind me sharing this. But Iran was developing several, what did he say, 4 to 6 nuclear weapons. And I thought, yes, Bill, I'm sure the White House would not mind you sharing this to pitch the war on a new idea that we're going after, because all these other ones they're trying don't seem to be working. No We ran on no forever
Just keep
wars.
floating the ideas until it sticks with the audience.
And yeah, and why would we have the press secretary, like we have a picture right here, Carolyn Levitt, or like Pete Hegseth, or General Kane, any one of those get up and say, yeah, here's the intelligence. They were working on nuclear weapons. Why wouldn't they have a picture or like a map? Heaven forbid. We're going to have Bill O'Reilly leaked to Glenn Beck, Mr. Chalkboard himself. No, they were working on like 4 to 6 weapons. So, Glenn, I'm telling you the inside scoop. It's like, all right, okay. All right. I literally was driving home yesterday and heard that and started laughing in my car. Of course, Bill. Of course you're going out there. Yeah, and
Wasn't that all based off of like the negotiation conversations between Witkoff, Kushner, and the Iranian regime?
yes, and
And it's already been pretty widely criticized as bad interpretation of what the Iranian people were saying.
right, the Iranian scientists, the actual, and if people really want to go deep on this, there's 2 sources that I really like. One is Dr. Trita Parsi. He is like part of a kind of like a liberal think tank, but he speaks like 3 languages. He has Iranian sources that he's talking to, and there's also Dropsite News. Check them out. They're a paid thing, but Jeremy Scahill of Dropsite News actually interviews like our adversary. So he interviewed Hamas representatives during the Gaza war, and he's interviewing Iranians now. And, hey, if you're going to bomb someone, you might as well listen to what they have to say, right? So just like they're watching TV to be like, I don't know. The thing is, I'll say this.
I think that would be more dependent on the situation, man. Like, right. I could have cared less for interviews of German partisans during World War II.
Oh,
like,
well.
No.
Well,
we know you're doing
but
evil.
These guys are just talking about like the regime and how they feel right now. Like they're not bringing up like 1979. I mean, maybe internally they are, but anyway, my point is like those are really good sources. But I want to get into the first article. This came out obviously a couple days ago. Like Avin and I said, there's it's by USA Today. It was written by Kinsley Crowley, and the only reason I pulled this article up is because down below there is several objectives that I just scrolled down to. So, quote, our objective is to defend the American people by eliminating imminent threats from the Iranian regime, a vicious group of very hard and terrible people, Trump said. He also said Iran tried to rebuild after the strikes last summer on the nuclear thing, the Midnight Hammer, the 12-day war when we bombed, was at Fordo. March 1, so on the 28th, that's what Trump said. On March 1st, quote, an Iranian regime armed with long-range missiles and nuclear weapons would be a dire threat to every American. We cannot allow a nation that raises terrorist armies to possess such weapons that would allow them to extort the world to their evil will. March 2nd, Trump listed out the 4 goals. Quote, an Iranian regime armed with long-range missiles and nuclear weapons would be an intolerable threat to the Middle East, but also the American people. So that's kind of the same thing. On March 2nd, Hegseth gave a press conference to the head of Department of War. Pete Hegseth said, this is not a so-called regime change war, but the regime sure did change, and the world is better off. I thought that when I saw the press conference, that seemed like a terrible statement. Like just as like he tried to make a joke out of what's happening. Rubio, now this is like the most hot fire thing that I've heard. On March 2nd, Rubio told reporters it was Israel that was planning to attack Iran first. Quote, we knew that there was going to be an Israeli action. We knew that that would precipitate an attack against American forces, and we knew if we didn't preemptively go after them before they launched on those attacks, we would suffer higher casualties. And then we're all here answering questions about why we knew that and didn't act. Trump recounted that on the 3rd of March, saying the U.S. thought Iran was going to strike first. They were going to attack. If we didn't do it, they were going to attack first. So if anything, I might have forced Israel's hand. But Israel was ready, and we are ready. The president determined where we'd go. It's simple. March 4th, Levitt spoke at a press briefing echoing the objectives. Iran rejected a path to peace because of the terrorists in charge of the regime, wanted to build nuclear weapons to use against our American. So they're talking a lot about nuclear weapons. And then on March 6th, Trump posted on Truth Social, there will be no deal with Iran except unconditional surrender. We had already bombed some of the regime. We'd already bombed a lot of facilities. And that's kind of where we are. So after all of those things, have you heard any other reasons why we're bombing Iran? To liberate the Iranian people, right? Didn't Trump early on said rise up, right? Something like that.
I've heard other reasons, but none of them are official. There's a pretty strong brewing feeling that the purpose of this was more so to distract from the Epstein files and what's going on there, and has less to do with actual threats to American national security. If you believe what our president had said, 6 months ago, 7 months ago, right, where we utterly obliterated, completely destroyed, and decimated their capacity to build nuclear weapons, they won't be able to do it for years, and then to turn around and say that they're building 4 to 6, and it's imminent and any day now. I believe it was you, and I haven't seen it yet, but I believe it was you who's telling me there's like supercuts out there of Benjamin Netanyahu
Yeah.
repeating over and over again, they're days away from it, days away from it, days away from it.
For 30 years. Also, he did make a statement after the bombing that he's been waiting to do this for 40 years, that he was hoping to do this for basically, it sounds like most of his life. He's 60. So yeah, I imagine when he thought this was a problem or, came into power. So
Yeah. I mean, and there's, again, even if it's not the Epstein thing, right, there's a lot of social media, right wing and left wing reporting. I'm not going to say reporters, right, because they're kind of amateur news people out there, all kind of saying the same thing too. Of this is Israel's war, it's not America's war. Right. Why are we doing this? A lot of that's coming from right-leaning or explicitly right social media personalities.
Yeah,
like this is
a lot of.
Why are we doing this for Israel?
Yeah, like Marjorie Taylor Greene, like America First people. Even Tucker Carlson. Why are we doing this type thing? I know Sagar and Jetty of Breaking Points. I didn't play the clip, but he did a big mea culpa on their show last week of like, hey, say that I was duped. I believed what they said. No more new wars. Rubio's out there saying we're doing this because of Israel. Why? So we're no longer, we've lost being a superpower, because there's been interviews floating around of Anthony Blinken. He served under Obama and Biden. He was the Secretary of State. And he said, listen, Netanyahu did the same thing to both past presidents, Obama and Biden, and they both said no. And so even Ben Rhodes, who was in Obama's Security Council, said, hey, listen, Trump has agency. Yes, like Netanyahu came to us and said, we want to do this. And we said no, and he didn't do it. And so by Trump just saying, sure, like that's all Bibi was waiting for. And it's like, just tell him no, man. Just be like, hey, I don't know, go kick rocks. Like, I don't know what to tell you.
No. We didn't cover it yet, but I'm assuming you were going to get to as well. But I'm going to jump the gun. Yesterday, the announcement was made that we're sending a Marine strike force.
Yeah, I was gonna. I didn't know if we were going to cover that, but yeah, is it 5,000 or 500? Did I read the report correctly?
5,000.
Yeah, and they're like amphibious, so they're probably going to the Strait of Hormuz to like demine the strait, probably, right? I would imagine, or something. Or take the
Well, I mean, you don't use an amphibious. You don't use an amphibious assault force for demining. That's a naval operation. I'm sure. Well, I don't know if the Navy has that or Marines have that capacity at all. They would be there for either direct defense of our assets or our allies, right, or invasionary force. Right, amphibious forces are meant for gaining a foothold and moving into a country. Typically, at least that's my interpretation of it. Someone can tell me I'm wrong. Feel free.
So what are we going to do next? Okay, so let's talk about the actual, this is a grief of politics, the actual wounded service members and people serving. And this just got updated yesterday, I think, March 10th, so a few days ago. So I believe it's 13 American service members who are dead. There was a refueling plane that crashed. All 6 members
Yep.
dead. Then 6 or seven unfortunately died before that. Also, about 140 service members have been wounded so far. Within Iran, I also saw a headline that I couldn't include. Well, I mean, we have a lot. French service member died. They were in Iraq, I think, serving in a base in Iraq. They died, so a French service member died. Um, so I think, and I've read reports on background, that a lot of these troops are being, uh, sent away to a base in Germany to be treated there. So they're no longer kind of under the auspice. They're not coming to an American base where there's less eyes, I guess, on them by reporters and things.
I mean, I if anyone's saying that, I would heavily challenge that the motivation is to get them out of the eyes of the press, right? Like we're moving them to a medical facility that's in Europe with an ally who's not, I should say, maybe not in direct support, but who's not stopping us from doing it.
That's true.
Um,
That's true.
I say that only because Spain was like, you can't use our bases before Trump was like, we're going to freeze all trade there,
Right.
which is a completely different story arc. We could go down that side. The reason I think they're doing that is, of course, you want to get your wounded soldiers out of the combat zone and
Yeah.
away from danger.
So that's
and
probably
back to friendly territory, right?
that's probably one of the closest bases I imagine there is. Like,
Well, honestly, I don't know, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's a close medical facility that is skilled at like trauma surgery and care.
yeah, I've heard. I used to listen to some veteran podcasts, and a lot of the veterans on there said that when they got wounded, it was like they always seemed to go to a few bases in Germany where they were like kind of designed for that, or at least that was their specialty. Where they said, "Yeah, we always ended up in Germany," because that's just what they do. Like,
It's not secret, right? Like people know that's where they're going, and maybe we're not out there like, oh, we're sending them to Germany for care, but like, I definitely do not see any nefarious intent on moving the soldiers to a hospital in Germany for care.
yeah, I mean, I think. I mean, I don't want to be a conspiracy theorist, but here we are. I do think more have been killed. And I think that, I don't think Hegseth is going to be the one to go out there and say, like, oh, because, like, then it looks really bad. When he has a press conference, it said, oh, 10 more died or whatever, like, I don't know. I just think
We
that,
can't keep that under wraps for very long, right? Because parents and family members, spouses are going to be notified.
and they're also, the ones I've seen, the military families, the few little bit I've read, they're not happy about this, right? Because it's like, what are we doing? What are we doing?
Right. We're putting husbands, wives, daughters, and sons in harm's way. For what?
Yeah. Yeah.
Honestly, for what? Like, I just don't believe that they have nuclear weapons. Look, at least during the Bush administration in Iraq, like, they did a really good job of presenting evidence and showing us that, like, Saddam Hussein was working on weapons of mass destruction. And let's be honest, we sold him the chemical weapons.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, right, like we have receipts to be like, yes, he has these things. Now, we also had reason to suspect that he was building it out. Now, did we overblow that intelligence? Yes. But that's a hindsight thing. In this situation, like, they didn't even try. 6 months ago, we bombed all our facilities. They're gone. Nothing's gonna happen.
Yeah.
They can't get a nuke anymore. Yay!
And
Oh wait, never mind. We lied. I mean, we didn't lie, but they've just advanced all of this stuff so super fast that they're gonna have a nuke any day now. Really,
and
guys? What
yeah.
what do you take us for? Chumps?
Yeah. And also, sticking on the troops thing, there is
Yeah.
nuclear material in Iran, but we don't know where it is. So you would have to send like a team in, and then you're going to have to send a team to support that team. And so that's literally boots on the ground in a country that's being bombed. I mean, that's just opening a can of worms for more casualties, like,
And there's been discussion of like, oh, Trump might reinstate the draft.
yeah, Carolyn Levitt said that in a press conference that he's keeping all options. Oh, I think Maria Bartiromo of Fox News, like, are we bringing back the draft? And all Carolyn Levitt said was a very passive statement about, I believe she said, we're just keeping all options on the table. And so then that really freaked people out. Because with the draft, you want to hear, no, of course not. That's what you want to hear. No, of course we're not doing that. You don't want to hear like, well, we're looking at everything. Like, okay, great.
I mean, I think a lot of people are nervous or scared about that because for a draft to take place, we'd have to be in a really bad situation.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
like not having enough personnel to do this. We'd have to be in a really bad situation.
Yeah. You got anything? I was going to move on. Do you have anything? I mean, we got kind of a lot in the show.
Yeah, let's move on, man. Like you said, we got a lot.
I'm going to go to. So this is the Iranian people. What's going on there? The first couple days of the war, we tried to hit a military base, and it looks like even with a U.S. preliminary report that our Tomahawk missile hit a school, killed 175 people. I think 90% of them were girls, anywhere from 7 to 12, mostly young girls. It was on February 28th, the first day of the strikes. There was a video circulating. There was some like New York Times, I think the Washington Post, were doing like an initial investigation. Then our own DOD did an internal investigation. They found preliminary things that it was us. And what they're not talking about, it was a double tap. So they hit the school, and then 40 minutes later, they hit the school again, which is terrible. And I've even seen like the Valuetainment podcast, like PBD and his people. Some of them are veterans saying you need to come out here and get ahead of it. If we made a mistake, you need to go out there and have a press conference and say we have made a mistake. We are correcting what we're doing. We are looking into this. These people will be held accountable. But we apologize. Like, you need to do something. And right now, Trump came out and said, Iran did it. They had the missile. Reporter had a really good question at a press conference, I don't know, a week ago. Just said, so what you're saying is that Iran got one of our Tomahawk missiles and bombed their own school. Why are you saying that? Which is a pretty direct, good question. And Trump said, he said, quote, I didn't know that much about it. So at the time...
Well, didn't he also come out and say something along the lines of like, oh, well, lots of people have Tomahawk missile. There's lots of them out there.
Yeah, he said a lot of people have Tomahawks, and that's when the reporter came back like a day later and said only... Well, there was another press briefing that Carolyn Levitt had, and a reporter said, why are we saying that so many people have Tomahawks when only like 2 of our allies and us? It's like, what is it, Australia and Britain, I think? Whatever. I'm not a military expert, but I think it's only 2 or 3 of our allies have Tomahawks. And we don't give them out willy-nilly. You don't just give them for like a birthday gift. Or, they're big. Hey, you have 2, like, I don't...
They're expensive.
Yeah. Like,
they're high-precision weapons.
Yeah. Australia has 3, Britain, whatever. You would know how many. So this is terrible. And I just got to say, like, even... Like I said, PBD, like people on the right, even Laura Ingraham on Fox News released a statement and said, "You guys have to have a press conference. You have to get ahead of this. If we want to, move forward with this incursion or whatever, you have to say something because this looks terrible. That we're just kicking the can down the road." Pete Hegseth did say they're looking into it.
Well, good. Like they should be looking into it, but with this administration, I'm going to use a phrase I don't like using very often, but this administration, I think, is the personification of toxic masculinity. I don't think that any of these men that are running our country have egos that are strong enough to admit that they made a mistake in public. I don't think they can do it.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. If you watch Pete Hegseth's press conferences or listen to I think I listened to some clips and saw it's all about how we're dominating them instead of like, here's our plan. And it's a general, it was a General Kane that's next to him that's like, here's what we're doing. And
I have to present strength at all times. Right. I can never show any form of weakness ever. It's not...
It ain't good, man.
It's not even thinly veiled. It's just flagrant.
Yeah.
And this is a situation where I'm like, this isn't strength. Like, this is what, when people say toxic masculinity, like, this is what it is.
Yeah.
This is people out there who are so fragile They can't ever own or admit when they make any mistake, even when it's flagrant. I mean, if you go back to President Trump's first term, like when did he ever admit making any mistake in any way, shape, or form that hurt him? I think there was maybe a couple of times, and I can almost guarantee that if he did, he immediately turned it to someone else or something else to soften it.
Right. Well, I mean that's his whole MO. If you look at his mentor, Roy Cohn, who was a lawyer in New York, who like kind of trained him. I was watching a documentary where I kind of had to stop because my head hurt. Because Roy Cohn's whole thing was, you never back down, you never apologize, you never admit defeat. Attack, attack, attack. That was like Roy Cohn's whole thing. And the beginning of the documentary, it was like he one of Roy's cases was he like prosecuted some spies from like Russia, and it was like a married couple, and they did bad things, but he immediately was like
Rosenbergs.
Yeah, it was immediately like death penalty. Now here's the deal: I think that if you're a traitor, that should definitely be on the table. But they came out some evidence later that, maybe the wife wasn't as involved, but she got roped into it, and they didn't have a proper defense team. And his thing was like, screw it, they're spies, they're dead. And you see that with Trump. He's never been like, oh, like, yeah, you know what? He can't just say, like, when the strike originally happened, he could have had a press conference, or, when they asked him on Air Force One, he could said, hey, we're looking into it, and then look back at Pete Hegseth, and Pete Hegseth could have said, we don't know, we're looking into it. I mean, that could have been like day 2, because then you're like, well, they said they're looking into it. He didn't say anything bad about any of that or whatever, so it's just one of those things where you're like, come on.
I mean, even the original reporting that we heard on it was not that, they had fired the missile, but what I had originally heard from more conservative circles was, from what we can tell, this looks like they had a missile launcher near or at the school that blew up, like they had a failed launch or something.
Right.
And of course, more information has come out since then, and it's become pretty obvious that it was us that did it.
Listen, this is bad, and I would like to reach out to some friends of mine that are MAGA and see what they think about it, but part of me doesn't want to, but part of me wants to see what they think about all this, because I think even like we've said before, like this doesn't look good even on the right. People on the right are like, we did what now? Like that's not good.
We don't really seem to have a coherent plan. We weren't really properly prepared for it. I didn't even read it yet, but this morning I got a notification that there's a Wall Street Journal article. Let's see if I can find it. Oh no, it's from the Atlantic. So, definitely more critical of Trump. But by failing to anticipate Iran's reaction, of course, it timed out. By failing to anticipate Iran's reaction, Trump has ignored a basic dynamic of war. The enemy makes choices too. This is, what does it say? Phillips Payson O'Brien argues.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing that I've heard some military people say, that the enemy always has a vote. Like, you think, like, we're done. And I do think that is really weird. You do hear some military people say, or, some pundits or say like, well, Trump could hopefully Trump will claim victory and we can leave. And it's like, yeah, but what, are they going to shoot us in the back? Because they're not going to, like, if we raise the right flag, one, that's a big moral victory for Iran. And then two, they could be like, okay, yeah, turn around and go away. And then we'll keep bombing facilities in the Middle East and stuff, So yeah, the next thing I want to talk about is, let's see if I can find it, because everything, okay, yes, acid rain after all these, like, it seems, now again, we talked about in the beginning, this is Israel's war. Everybody's like, oh, we're partners and we're sharing intel. Hegseth said that and stuff, but it really seems like there's some things with the Israeli military where they're like scorched earth. Like, they're hitting oil facilities. There's acid rain. I believe Israel was the first person to hit a desalination plant. And then Iran hit one in turn to one of their Middle Eastern allies, which is crazy for a desert area to be like, yeah, you no longer have water. Like, I can't.
Iran had a desalinization plant of one of their allies
Not
in the
one of
Middle
their
East.
allies. It was like one of the Middle Eastern countries where they hit like Bahrain or something. They hit one of their. It was like tit for
That
tat.
makes more sense.
They're like, oh, you're gonna do this to us. Well, we're just, we're gonna project all this, out and like, and I think it was Israel allegedly that hit. Initially, they hit a desalination plant, and then I think Iran was like, okay, sure, but it is literally there is black rain coming down in Tehran, and um, there's this black smoke everywhere. Um, People have difficulty breathing. Oil contaminated rain settling on buildings and cars. Iran's Red Crescent Society warned rainfall following the strikes to be highly dangerous and acidic. And as an atmospheric chemist and chemical engineer who researches air pollution, these reports are very worrying and indicate much more than acid rain. The rain would include acids, but also likely a host of other pollutants that are harmful to humans and the environment in a short and long term. It may be worse than the term acid rain conveys. More broadly, the thick clouds of toxic smoke over densely populated areas in Iran are also a major problem for anyone breathing right now. One of the primary ways air pollutants are removed from that atmosphere is through rain. Uh, they said, okay, yeah, to me, this black rain indicates toxic pollutants such as hydrocarbons or ultrafine particles known as PM 2.5 and carcinogenic compounds called polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons. Cool. So, yeah, that's not good. I mean, not only the immediate stay indoors, whatever, it's like people are like, well, what's going to happen 5 years from now, 10 years from now? Like, he just said carcinogens. That's cancer. So like, are people going to start coming down with lung cancer? Organ can. Who knows?
Yeah.
So, and you think right now they're going to want to like? Apparently, early on, Trump reached out 3 times to the Iranian IRGC, their National Guard, and was like, "Do you guys want to negotiate?" And they're like, "No." No, we don't right now. We don't actually want to negotiate with you, or So,
Yep.
um, do you think people are going to be excited? I told you, I've been reading on background that although there's no real polls in Iran of how the people feel about the government, that anti-American sentiment had been waning, not gone, but kind of waning because there was a lot of younger people like, oh, that happened in the 70s or whatever, or the 1982. Like, I don't care. I wasn't around then. This is the country I live in now. And there's been, I mean, I didn't have the footage, but there's been a rally around the flag thing, which we always talk about, but happened in Iran when they announced their new supreme leader, who is the son of the old supreme leader. He's 30 years younger. Also, in the strikes that Israel and America carried out, they took out most of his family. I think his wife, his son, his many people in his family. And so, um, yes, I don't know if that person's going to want to negotiate with you or if that person's going to be like, okay, we can calm down and let's all just sit at the table and just talk about how we can get out of this. I don't think they're going to do that at all. And I mean, especially when you rain down oil on people. Also, um, here's a theory I've been working with, and I've heard it a little bit bandied about. Do you think now, after this is over, I don't know how long this is going to take, how long the war is going to take in Iran, after this is over, do you think the new government, I don't know if it's going to be this person or someone else that the RGC wants, if they're going to be more antagonistic to the United States, do you think they will actually try to make a nuclear weapon?
I mean, it really depends on who ends up taking over, right? So we're not there for regime change. Okay, that's fine. But at this point in time, if a regime similar to, friendly to, or modeled after the current administration regime leadership within Iran, uh, if something similar to that comes in, right, then I wouldn't be surprised at all if they continue to try to do it. Now, it really depends, of course, too, on what terms of peace end up being at the end of all of this. Uh, you know, if they are basically held over a barrel and at gunpoint have to accept, I highly doubt that we'll see an administration that comes in that is as aggressive um, as the current administration or regime within Iran.
You think they'll be less aggressive than the current regime if someone else?
It really depends on how we end this, right? Like, ultimately, if we allow the government of Iran to continue to be what it is, it will be probably more aggressive. If somehow we manage to succeed in pummeling the Iranian Republican Guard and the clerical leadership and the government leadership, if we just you know beat them hard enough with bombs, which has never happened before, then maybe there'll be some kind of an uprising of pro-democratic, pro-Western, or at least Western-friendly factions within the country. I just don't see that happening, right?
No,
Like,
I think
you and I have talked about on the phone multiple times that, like, Trump has come out and been like, "Oh, I know who I want it to be. Oh no, Israel killed him. Ah, I know who I want. Well, Israel killed them too, right? Like,
they went
we
like
don't
three
really
tiers down
have-
and killed like the fourth tier guys.
we don't really have someone else that we want in power there. So, like, what is the end goal? Are we going to put some puppet governor in there and an occupying force?
Oh,
I mean,
I'm sure the Iranian people would love that's never happened in their history, and they can't see that for what it is. The moment the guy's
yeah.
like, "Hey, let's talk to America," they'd be like, That's how you're going to get an uprising. Is the moment the new supreme leader says, "You know what? I think we could trade with the United States. Why don't we give them a deal on oil?" And I think that's when you would see the population say, "We are not going to be a puppet of the American." Satan America or the devil America or whatever they call, whatever they say. I think that would be a way to get them to rise up of like, we're not doing this again. We did it. You did it in 79. Like, we're not doing it again.
what did I saw some news the other day that we were supporting, arming, backing some Kurdish militia forces.
Yeah. Out of Iraq. And they said, we want no part of this. Someone that was a lot more versed in this, I think it was Ben Rhodes. He said, listen, the Kurds have been divided into like 3 regions. And they realized, like, we backed them and then we hung them out to dry. And they're afraid about going up. I mean, it's just them up again. And they're like, there's 90 million. Like, what are you talking about? Like, if it was like another army, we would do it. But we're not crazy, Like, they're like we're mercenaries, but we're not insane mercenaries, Like, we have standards, Like, that's what I've heard initially was we came to them and was like, do you guys want to get in there again? And they're like, no, bro, I'm good. Like, we're good. Like, plus they're probably worried about their borders, like Iraq. They're like, no, we're not going anywhere. We're staying here to make sure we lock this down. I mean, our embassy in Iraq, I think, was there was protests. We had to close the consulate down. Like, people are not happy about this. A side thing I want to
Well, the
mention.
whole region is not happy about it, and we sort of forced the whole region's hand. So, right, like, as an ally, we're not doing a good job with anyone that we're trying to befriend in the Middle East.
Right.
That's for sure.
Also, I don't know if it's going to happen today, tomorrow, in a year, 5 years, but a lot of these Gulf countries that we have hung out to dry, they're reevaluating their relationship with us, whether it be, intel or financial. They've invested a lot in the Trump family. They've invested in data centers in the Middle East. An Amazon data center I heard got hit in the initial strikes. Yeah. They could literally have a meeting, the Gulf states, and say, we're not doing this anymore. We're not going to give them any money, because there was reports on background that the U.S. pulled its munition back to protect Israel and the Iron Dome and left all the Gulf states out to dry. So they're like, wait a minute. So you can't even call ahead and say, hey, we're going to do this on Saturday. We need you guys. We're going to make you aware, lock it down, get everybody out of your embassies. Try to do what you can. I understand it's Friday night, and we're doing this.
It's a good ally move. That's a bad move if you don't necessarily trust the governments in place in those places. Like, even if you don't necessarily think that the government itself is actively working against you, if you think that there could be people within there that are Iranian friendly, and you were to tell someone in that area in advance, there's a good chance that would leak to Iran, and they wouldn't want that. So I vacillate on the military intelligence, but from an ally perspective, right? Like, we want to be your friend. So from a State Department perspective, right? Like, you would want to let them know, like, hey, this is coming.
I know nothing's a certainty, but again, like you said, that's why you have the State Department. You have those people reach out to your counterparts and whatever. You have a good relationship. Hey, man.
Hey, we don't know what's happening, but we've heard some stuff. You might want to be prepared. You're right, you don't have to give specifics, but like, something's on the horizon real close, like beef up your stuff.
Right.
We have a feeling that there's an attack coming in. We need to bring our stuff back and defend our bases in the region. So
Right.
just, be prepared.
This could
But
happen.
I mean, how much of that did and didn't happen, we don't know. What we do know for sure is that this has never happened before. Iran hasn't gone after their Middle Eastern neighbors. And so it's also very possible that we were just really arrogant and we're like, Iran isn't going to go
What?
after them. We need to defend where that's going to be. They're going to attack Israel again. We need to get our defenses over in Israel. Of which strikes are getting into Israel, right? Civilians are dying.
There's
And
not enough bunkers for everybody. Also, I don't know if you heard this, but it happened, I think, this weekend, Friday or Thursday. Israel started bombing Tehran. So it's like, hey, what do you? That's like when you're playing a game and then two people are playing a game like in another court that's not being used for the game with everybody with the jerseys. It's like, what are you doing over there? We need our players over here. But they had to evacuate parts of Tehran, and it's just escalating. Because I think,
I mean, I don't see why that's a particularly big deal, right? Like
well, not I'm
Iran's been
sorry,
targeting
not
civilian infrastructure
not Tehran. They are bombing. They're bombing Lebanon. So they're bombing.
yes,
They're
yes.
bombing Lebanon, which it's like, whoa, guys, what are you doing? What's happening? You know what I mean? So,
Like, and when I say, right, like civilians are dying in Israel, right, that is not to say that civilians aren't dying in Iran. Like we had just talked about a school getting bombed and
yeah,
hundreds of children, over 100 young girls being killed. But we're fighting, we, the United States, Israel, and our allies are fighting under the public auspice that we are targeting military and political targets. Specifically, we're not out to attack civilian infrastructure, whereas Iran is directly targeting civilian targets. Of which, from a defense perspective, right, for them, probably looks like, if we make the civilians mad enough, they'll pressure their government to stop.
right.
I,
Well,
I don't know that that's the case. I don't.
I think, well, I mean, it's a, what's the old term from the Iraq Afghanistan war? It's a quagmire, right? Apparently, I heard a report that the Iranian IRGC was like, okay, we've gone through this before. We're going to take some time. Let's come up with a plan. And this was their plan. They apparently the first couple days of the strikes, they built like a horizontal leadership where the generals could act independently. They probably had a list of targets. So and so over there is getting these targets. I'm doing this. We don't need to communicate. We don't want to be taken out. We don't want to send wires to each other. And
Yep.
so I think that's what they're doing. I think they're just like, okay, we're going to execute on this, this, and this. And like you said, maybe, I mean, one thing that I think is interesting that I don't think, I mean, people talked about when it happened, but they're not talking about now, is they hit Dubai. And the reason why that's a
Yeah.
big deal is it's a wealthy playground. So you're like,
Yeah.
we're just going to hit hotels. You guys, oh, that's going to
Tax
screw.
haven. Lots of people move their businesses there because it's a tax haven.
Right. Also,
Yep.
as an animal lover, I'm sure you have, and I've heard some stories of people abandoning their animals to get out of the country, literally leaving their
Oh,
dogs tied up to like telephone poles. There's photos from journalists over there. Shelters are being called like, hey, come get my dog. I'm leaving the country. And the shelter's like, we have no space. Some people are literally just calling like, come euthanize my animal because I got to go. And it's like, okay. I mean, I know war is hell, but like that's something I didn't even think of. I was like,
well, there's lots of um, allied states of the United States have lots of people in that area, and by that area I mean like the Middle East. And I've seen lots of reports of Americans reporting that they can't get out,
and that's another thing that
or
I mean,
that they struggle to get out. There's been interviews of people who were like, "We are lucky that we got out. So many others couldn't."
so it was only I've heard like I've heard hundreds of people are stuck over there. I don't know about now, but they were at the beginning of this. And there was a story that came out. It's anecdotal, but they were reaching out to people. How'd you get home? Are you safe? And one of the people said like, hey, we were in Israel. I think they were working. They were like they were engaged, young engaged couple. And when this went off, they called the embassy and were like, how do we get out? And the embassy said, we don't really know. Or they said basically, our thoughts and prayers are with you. Like, we're trying the best we can, but we don't really know. And the couple was quoted as saying, "We're religious, but you don't want to hear your embassy say that." I mean, like, well, good luck, you know. And you're just like, man, that is like the level of, again, like we talked about planning. Like, there was I think it was after the strikes, I saw a list from the State Department. Hey, these embassies in these 14 countries, you might want to evacuate. And I was like, well, the strike's already started, though. So, I mean, they need to evacuate, but, like, wouldn't you, I don't know, send this out? Well, I don't know.
You texted me the day before it started. A
Well,
report that
Huckabee.
Huckabee had warned people in Israel to get out.
Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
like 12 hours in advance or something like that.
Yeah. And you don't know the exact time, right? He probably just got a thing like, we're doing this, and we're not going to tell you
Yeah.
when. So then he sent out an email, get out. So I do want to make sure that you can actually see. I got a MSN thing up. Can you see the screen right now? I got my little share
No.
screen thing on. Let me see if I can. I'll change it here. Let's see here. Let's see if I can change.
There it is.
Change.
I got it.
Well,
Right now I see
how about that MSN?
here about it. Yeah, there you go.
Okay.
MS Now.
MS Now. If they changed their name, I'm never going to get it correct, probably. Okay. Go back to our stream. I'll probably have to edit that out. Hopefully you can hear it because I'm sharing screen. So let me know if I have to like turn it up. But this is people are they're going back and forth between what the president is saying and like the war. And this came out, I want to say, March 4th.
You've been attacked by it.
Can you hear that?
Max, let me repeat what
Yeah.
President Trump said when asked if Americans should be worried about attacks here at home. Quote, I guess, but I think they're worried about that all the time. We think about it all the time. We plan for it. But yeah, we expect some things. Like I said, some people will die. When you go to war, some people will die. Your reaction to how the president handled that question?
I think it's part of a pattern of Trump just saying stuff and often very inappropriate stuff, and Hexeth too. I mean, it kind of feels like at times they are treating this like a video game. And in fact, they're posting videos on the White House website, borrowing from movies and video games. And it doesn't feel like they're dealing with the gravity of the situation. He's just, throwing stuff out there. Americans should definitely be concerned about the terrorism threat from Iran. They have a long history of supporting terrorism, and that could be one of the ways that Trump could respond. But it's kind of interesting to see how, when it comes to deflecting congressional action, the argument from the administration is this isn't a war. It's only bombing. It's only a special military operation, as Putin might call it. But when it comes,
I'm going to stop it there. So so that's Trump saying,
Yep.
I guess people just die in war. I guess it just kind of happens. I mean, what are you going to do? What are you going to do, huh? Maybe I shouldn't have sent people to war, but it's not a war, like this guy said. It's an excursion. Which, did you hear this reporting that they believe Trump is saying excursion because a military person told him it's an incursion, and he conflated the two, and so now he's saying excursion. He's not saying incursion, which we have done. We've done
And of
incursion.
course, no one around him has the courage to correct him.
Right. Well, I got a topper about that. But what do you think right now, Trump, like his thing? There's been a lot said about Trump. What do you think? I mean, not that you have to like climb inside of Trump's head, but I mean, do you think that because he's saying multiple things, like it could last a long time. We could be done in a couple days. We're winning, but we could keep going. The regime is decimated. They don't even. I heard one quote after they named a new supreme leader. Trump said, "Well, they don't even. We don't. Who would surrender? We don't even. They don't even have a leader." And I was like, "But they just announced a new leader, so they have it. Like, I don't even know. It would probably be the IRGC, the National Guard, but still, like, they do have a new leader. Like, I don't know. Maybe he's not paying attention to briefings, or he's not really a details
Telling
guy.
them what? What information does he know?
Yeah, it's like, what do you mean? Oh, is that
Doesn't he know?
yeah? Is that guy dead? The guy that they just elected, because apparently that guy didn't go out in public. Apparently, when they announced who the new leader was, I don't know if you saw that, but they just had a picture of him, like to show the people, because they're like, he's not stepping out there, like he's gonna get shot, like he's gonna get shot right away. So, I mean, to me, it's a real big. Quagmire kind of sums it up. I don't know who, if was it Rumsfeld that said that during the Iraq-Afghanistan? Somebody said, maybe it was a news person said that it was like a quagmire, but it is, it's pretty crazy to me. And also like, it is weird to me that like, I listen to some veteran podcasts and some opinion, and it's strange to me that there hasn't really been a comment about this. Like it seems like there's people that don't agree with what is happening coming out and saying, like, this man talked about the video game. Have you seen any of those? The social media video game posts?
I've heard about them, but I haven't seen them, no.
One of them was from the Wii golf game where it was like hole in one. And when it got to the hole in one, it changed to military bombing footage of like a facility being bombed. There was Call of Duty when they did like somebody holds up their wrist, hits a button.
Strike.
Yeah, calls in an airstrike or something, and they turned into real military footage. They're doing stuff like that. And I haven't really heard a lot of people in the military. I guess there's been some reports, but like some of the commentary of like podcasts listened to with like Nick Freitas, who's a veteran, PBD, two of those guys are veterans. None of them have said like, oh yeah, I like this or whatever. They haven't been critical. Maybe they're not seeing it, but also there's been a lot of talk about, Biden when he was at Dover receiving dead service members, the caskets when they were coming home. Biden checked his watch. And apparently the veteran community lost their mind because he checked his watch, which rightfully so. He probably should have checked his watch. I mean, he is a president. There's things he has to do, but he is at Dover receiving veterans. Trump wore a baseball cap that said USA. Didn't seem very interested in what was going on. Kind of looked kind of schleppy. Like, it just seems strange to me that like there isn't as much outrage over like, hey, why are we posting video game memes to talk about dead service members or dead civilians, or like, why is the president just wearing a hat? And then he golfed that weekend. Like, I think Friday was when they received the bodies, and then at Mar-a-Lago he was golfing that weekend or whatever. He went back and golfed. And I haven't really heard a lot of upset about, Biden was apparently, I mean, we all know Biden was a bad president and everything, especially towards the end. But like, nobody's saying anything. The fact that Trump has just been golfing this whole time. Also, this is something that's been bothering me, and I know we're running long, but I mean, there's a lot of stuff. We got to get to the topper, Avin. The topper's really good of the episode. But what I find very annoying that no one's really talking about is, one, Trump takes a lot of vacations. He goes to Mar-a-Lago a lot, like every weekend, I think, or every other weekend, maybe would be safe. Plays a lot of golf. Okay, it's fine. He owns the property. He can play golf, whatever. I'm mad about that he's not like at the White House or whatever, but he owns a lot of properties. One thing I don't hear talked about a lot is the fact that he's using a resort in Florida at Mar-a-Lago as a situation room. Like, they basically have curtains up and like TV screens with like, it's like, hey, why don't you get in a secure location? Like, I don't know, the situation room in the White House where you can't bring your phones in. Like, I listened to a military, he was a military professor. He works for the Atlantic, Tom Nichols. He teaches at the Naval Academy. He retired, but he said, yeah, he goes, this place has rafters. Like, so they're putting curtains up, but there's rafters everywhere. So like, there's staff walking around, there's probably people dining, and like these people just
maybe. I would doubt that that's the situation, right? Like, despite the fact that they're doing it there, Secret Service, military intelligence, other people are going to want to protect it. So we don't know what's on the other side of the curtain, but I highly doubt that they've just got like, people sitting in a cafeteria eating lunch while this is going on the other side of the curtain. Most likely they've got guards on the other side. They've cleared out that space. They set it up. They have their meeting. They break it down. Hopefully.
They don't just leave all their work on the table when they go have lunch.
Then again, they're taking pictures of it and then posting those pictures that showing like, here's roughly where our people are in the background. Yeah. So
it's something that the more this goes on, like, it's starting to bother me more and more, where I'm like, so like apparently one of the early photos that came out of them in their Mar-a-Lago situation room was a dot where the school was, where the school got hit by the missile. And so it's like, okay, so they knew they hit that area. So like that's kind of messed up. So
Right. But you and I had talked about separately, and we didn't go over it. But the article that we reviewed earlier does talk about that facility was a military facility until 2016. When
absolutely.
it became a school, they built a wall to separate it. So you and I had talked about, like, there's reports coming out that the military is using stale intel.
Right. And I mean, again, there will have to be a whole cloth investigation, but I've heard some people got fired. Now, I don't know if that was the people that were involved in the strike. I've heard it could have been that, or the people that were involved in investigating the strike, which is terrible because we do that a lot. We fire people that are, you know, like in charge of things, like generals have stepped down, like all this kind of stuff. So
You're going to say something negative publicly, or even not publicly, but just to us, you're fired.
yeah, I mean, basically, it's like you said. It's also so. Before we get to the topper, Avin, okay, I guess there's two toppers. You get sprinkles and a cherry. So, did you see this picture going around about these shoes that Trump has been giving to his cabinet people? And Marco Rubio's are like 2 sizes too small. And so, a lot of people commented on this, and I'm just stealing other smarter people's opinion. But the 3 people that are listening to this, look for those photos, and then think of this. If Avin was like, hey, Joe, I want to get you some shoes. And I lied to you for some reason and said, oh, I wear a size 7 and they didn't fit. You think I could go to Avin and say, you know what? I don't know what I was thinking that day. Maybe I had a couple IPAs. Actually, I'm a 10. And Avin would say, okay, you know what? I'll return these. I kept the receipt because I'm the president of the United States and I'll get you the 10s. Instead, no one is going up to Trump. Nobody. Marco, there's these photos of these shoes, and Marco Rubio, they literally look like clown shoes. They're like 2 sizes too small. He can't go to the president and say, you know what, sir, you know, the tag's small. I'm actually a 6. I thought it was, you know, I told you 8. I'm actually a 6. That tag's really small on there. Could you just get me some 6s? That'd be great. Like,
The shoes are too small, or they're too large?
they're too, sorry, I'm on a rant. They're too big. I said 8. I need a 6. Could you please return these? But it's the idea of, like you talked about earlier. Is it masculine to not say anything when it's something as small as shoes? To just go to the president and say,
yeah, no. In this situation, no, it's not masculinity. It's I don't want to get fired.
Yeah.
I don't want to piss off my boss.
Which is
right?
crazy.
Like it's the exact opposite of masculinity in this scenario.
Yeah, which is to just.
It's not just Rubio. It's like multiple people, and from what I understand, they're like $150 pair of shoes. Like, just go buy another matching pair that fits.
Yeah.
He won't know the difference.
That's it. That's what Sam Side said of the Bulwark. They were laughing about the photos, and he said, I would just tell the president, because he thinks this is attached to dick size, that you say, like, oh, yeah, I need 14s. He buys you the 14s. You look at the tag, go to the store and get the 8s that you need or whatever. And then he goes, oh, those shoes look good. You're like, yeah, they do. And you keep the other ones in your closet until you leave office and pack them at the bottom of a box on top of clothes so the president can't see them. And you say, man, those are great shoes. Those are great shoes.
These are like I said, it's like they're from what I understand, they're a pretty cheap, like $150 pair of shoes. Yeah. Like, you guys all make obscene amounts of money.
Yeah.
Through, I mean, not necessarily through your official payroll, but they're all paid pretty well. But like, you're all wealthy in your own right. Just go buy a $150 pair of freaking shoes that fit.
Yeah. Also, having these people have to have assistants, right? I'm sure Marco Rubio's got an assistant.
Yeah.
You
multiple.
You literally, when everybody leaves a room, you tell your assistant, you follow me. You go into a corner, or you literally go in a closet and you say, listen, you go get me these shoes in the size I need, and you throw these in a box in the corner, and I will give you whatever lunch, whatever amount of money. I don't want to talk about this again. This conversation never happened. Go do it. But they're not doing that. They're wearing them in public. It's like, you got to be kidding me. Because would that be, it would be a nice white lie for them to come to the office. I know we're spending a lot of time on shoes, but it would be a nice white lie for them to come to the office with the shoes that fit, and Trump could go, man, those look really good. It's like, yeah, they're really comfortable too. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you so much, sir. It's
a white lie. You gave me the shoes.
I can see why you bought these. This was a great choice. Thank you so much.
Yeah, these are so snug. I'm gonna just keep buying these. It's insane to me. But like you said, these people are so scared to talk to the president that they don't want to be fired. That it's like, I thought you guys were adults. Like, at work, I do this all the time. I'm an adult. And when you confront someone, it doesn't mean you have to yell at someone. You just say, "Hey, man, I didn't like this, or I like this, or could you do like it's whatever." It's about being an adult,
Right.
like a human person that's an adult living in the world. So that will lead us to the cherry, which I love the Bulwark. We talk about it a lot, but there's a great quote from the Bulwark that I found that I wanted to include. This is Sarah Longwell and Tim. Can you see it, Avin?
Yeah.
Okay. They are talking about Trump, and Tim tells a little anecdote, and this goes on for like 3 minutes, but I think it is chef's kiss, so I had to include in the show. Big Bulwark fan. Sorry I can't support you guys yearly. Maybe I'll buy a mug or something, but this is him talking. This actually came out 4 days ago, so not bad. So here, I'll play it right now.
On world peace over here.
Look, we can make the hypocrisy arguments until we're blue in the face. But honestly, and we should, and we will. Trump doesn't care. I actually think, I've been thinking about this a lot. You know, you and I, actually, we jumped on right after this happened, kind of a couple days in, and we were like, why hasn't Trump done an Oval Office address? Why isn't he talking to the American people? But actually, the question does sort of answer itself. It's that he does not care, right? If Trump is the emperor god of all things, as he sees, just think about Trump's experience right now. Think about what it's like to be him. All you do is have cabinet meetings where everybody goes around the table to tell you what a beautiful, amazing, brilliant job you've been doing. All you're doing is taking calls from billionaires telling you how amazing you are, and they're sending you $1 million. And could you get their degenerate son-in-law, pardoned? He's pardoning the January 6th people who are out there committing heinous crimes of sex crimes against children now, but he doesn't get any blowback for that. All he hears from the people surrounding him in every way is how incredible he is. And so Trump, he doesn't care about making a case to the American people. He doesn't care what we think. He doesn't even care about his poll numbers. He already won. Like, I think that sometimes when we talk about, isn't this bad for him politically? Of course it's bad for him politically in a normal way. Like, in terms of his numbers go down, people think he's a hypocrite, voters don't like it. People are actually dying. Gas prices are going up. There is inflation. He looks like a fool. He doesn't care. And the second you realize, don't let the nihilism infect you, but the second you realize what a nihilist he is, and that he, unlike any other American president, does not care about the impact on the American people in any real way, everything starts to make sense.
Two thoughts on this that just sparked. One, I've been saving this one, been waiting for the right opportunity to bring it up. A friend was in the White House because their boss was meeting with Trump. I've got to kind of anonymize this. And they're like, you won't believe what happened. Like, Trump does this thing where he's taking us around. And they go into Marco's
just says
office.
Click on exit.
And Trump is like, Marco, how are things going with the world or the war or something? And Marco replies, Mr. President, everything is going great. You're the greatest, most visionary leader of all time. And like things, the world has never respected us more. And then they go and he takes him to Scott Bessent's office, and it's like, Scott, how are things going with the economy? And Scott's like, it's the golden age, sir. It's the golden age, Mr. President. And it's like, I was listening to the story. It's like, okay, we've all come to accept that is happening at the cabinet meetings. Like, we make fun of it, but it's like been the reality now for 8 years. It started during the first term. There was just something about the fact that this was happening in private that made me think, that speaks to the point you just made. That, like, not only is Trump not getting any real advice, but like the opposite. Like, even in private, they are, just treating him like he's a leader from the Middle Ages, and the serfs have to all pay homage to him so that he doesn't send them to their deaths.
I think that's right.
All right, I'm leaving it there. So that's the cherry. I just was putting this all together. I was listening to Bulwark in the background, and Tim told this story. I said, that's too juicy. That's too juicy to not put in the episode. And I think they're right. I mean, obviously Tim heard that story and anonymized it, but I think Sarah's critique is right on. Like, if he really cared, he would be making a case to the American people. He would be giving press conferences, and like, we need to do this for security reasons. They're building bombs, they have ballistic missiles that could reach the West Coast or whatever, but he's not. He doesn't care. He won. Yep. What say you,
Very
sir?
much so.
Does that sound right? Does that sound correct?
I mean, it lines up completely with my opinion of things, right? Like, Trump has successfully surrounded himself with absolute zealous sycophants who have learned that if they want to stay in this position of power and to do their will, all they have to do is kiss ass.
Yeah. And you know what's crazy? I thought about that too. There was another report that came out this weekend where it was like an insider and everybody's on background, but they were basically talking to a reporter like, listen, I think we're trying to steal the candy store, but like there's so much grift and stuff going on and like pardons and like contracts floating around. Everybody's making money. But like, I guess this insider was like, you do understand that like other people will be in charge sooner or later. Like, it seems like everybody here is just vacuuming up everything they can because they know their time is short and that they know anybody in a normal society will be like, hey, you can't steal the whole candy store, and like, we're going to have investigations and we're going to have committee hearings and you're going to be subpoenaed. And I think I think whatever the next administration comes in, I think it's going to be pretty crazy. So to bring it back to Iran, I know that was a tangent at the end, but like, do you foresee this being, like they said September, the administration said September. Do you think it'll be before or after September?
I don't even know if I can wager a guess. I don't know that September's accurate, right? Trump is now saying that we're close, which signals to me that he's recognizing the political cost of this is actually too high. Right? Like, I am of the belief that they're going to do any and everything they can to fix this election so it works in their favor, right? Like pushing the SAVE Act and everything else that they've got going on.
I did want to talk about the SAVE Act on an episode too, because I got in a discussion with a friend of mine who's very conservative. Was like, what's the problem? I don't see the problem with it. And I was like, I don't know. Everything I read, it's like, there's a problem. Like, there seems to be a problem.
I've talked to you about this independently, and we'll go on a completely different tangent, so I'll prevent us from doing that. Right? Like, I do think Trump, or at least the people around him, have enough recognition that, right, like, if you want to do something to manipulate the election, like, anything you do is only going to move the needle a little tiny bit. If you piss off the electorate too much, if you alienate the voting base too much, you're still going to lose, right? The whole too big to rig philosophy, right?
Yeah.
And people always bring up the 2020 election, all of the conspiracy theorists, election deniers, election was rigged and stolen, like all those people. I'm going to say conspiracy theorists, right? Because there's just literally no actual evidence that proves it. Everything is completely circumstantial, and all of it's been dismissed in court. Like, not a single case has moved forward on that. So anyway, if you're one of those people that thinks that, I would give a couple of different hypotheses as to why Joe Biden got so many votes. And I think that's largely because of the concept of too big to rig. I think enough people were scared that Trump was going to try to do stuff to subvert the election. And I think enough people were scared of another term with Trump that just tons and tons and tons of people came out to vote.
Yeah. Well, I didn't want to, I couldn't.
This will probably, in my opinion, this might be the largest voter turnout in a midterm ever.
Yeah. And I don't think it's...
I wouldn't be shocked at all.
Yeah. I think also again, there was so much going on the show. The Heritage Foundation, I guess, big right-wing think tank, they released their info on how many illegal aliens voted from like 2000 to 2025. And I think it was like 100, if that.
It's like in the hundreds, right?
Yeah,
like
so
not
it's
even,
like,
yeah.
So it's
the proven illegals and all of the different various accusations and investigations, right?
Yeah, and that's from the Heritage Foundation. So that they are recombing through the data. They're trying to find, and I guess apparently they even said that, hey, we even admit that some of these were a mistake the person made. It wasn't somebody trying to be fraudulent. They just voted And then it was like, oh, I can't vote? Shoot. I didn't know, like I didn't have whatever. I didn't get my notice. Whatever. So, I mean, that kind of stuff. I think you're right. I mean, I don't know what they're going to do in the midterms. I think obviously if gas keeps going up, like that's just something that everybody knows, like this is terrible. And, without
the more Americans that die in this conflict, the worse it's going to be for them too.
Yeah, those are the two things I think that people are going to, if you keep seeing those ceremonies at Dover and you keep hearing, if Pete Hegseth, because again, if he gives a conference and said this is how many people have been injured, this is how, like the more and more that happens, people are going to be like, why? Like you wanted, like we haven't done regime change, but you want it to be regime change. They have ballistic missiles. They don't have ballistic missiles. This is going a little bit long, but that background reporting I read on the nuclear discussions was the Obama people that went in there that signed the agreement. It's got a long initial whatever. They signed it and they said, well, we signed it. The Iranian scientists, the Iranian regime signed on to everything. We were going to inspect everything. The reason why we were confident in, that they weren't doing it was one, we can inspect everything and all that, but also the reactor they were using is for research and just power plants to make plutonium and all this. They need a bigger reactor. They need a bigger facility or something. And these are physicists, like nuclear physicists, looking at all this. And I just have to bring up, I said it offline to you, but it's been reported now that it was only, I got two different sources that basically said, I'm reading two different articles where it basically said it was only Witkoff, who is a real estate person, and Jared Kushner. And people with them were like, why aren't nuclear scientists here? So the idea was there was a breakdown in negotiations because they did not understand what was going on. They don't, like, I'm not faulting them. They're very good real estate. Well, I mean, that's up in the air if they're good at real estate, but they are real estate people talking about a nuclear reactor, which there's always that joke about, you got to send the right person for the right job. And they sent two real estate people to talk about a nuclear program, which just seems like it's like when the Navy called me when I was 18 and said they wanted me to work on a sub. And I said, oh, you want me to do math? And they said, yes. And I said, you might want to rethink your invitation to having me on a sub to do any kind of math that has to do with a nuclear sub. And the guy was like, well, we can work on that. I was like, how much are we working on that? Because it's going to be a lot. So that's all I'm saying. So as we wrap it up, is there anything you want to plug, Avin? I mean, I'm not excited about how long this is going to go on,
Look, for anyone that's actually still listening at this point in time, one, thank you. But two, right, leave some comments, right? Like it actually does support the algorithm when you leave comments. You're engaging with the stuff, but also like we would like to hear opinions. Tell us that we're idiots. We don't care.
You can
tell
call
us that we're spot on. Yeah. We'd love to hear that too, right?
Tell me I'm a cuck. I'm fine with that.
We're like more like Joe said at the beginning of this. You've got two middle-aged guys who are really just sitting here and opining about what's going on in the world. Yeah. Frequently, we disagree on stuff. Lately, neither of us are happy with this administration. So, right, like this is a easier conversations for us because we tend to agree pretty heavily.
Yeah, we are going to make fun of the Democrats though because they're their own dumpster fire right now. In fact, Amazon was selling crocheted support dumpster fires. They're like little cute little dumpsters with cute little eyes with like, I was like, we should buy some of those. But
I have a couple colleagues at work that have them.
They got
emotional support dumpster fires.
Yeah. We'll definitely talk about the Democrats. I do want to talk about the SAVE Act. I want to get into that. Cause I think Trump made it harder is what I read right before. I think last night I was reading that he added stuff to the bill of like, oh, you want to do this and you already don't have the vote for it? I want you to do these 4 other things that'll make it harder. And so we should talk about the SAVE Act. We should talk about local politics here in Washington. We passed a wealth tax. We should talk about that. I haven't really looked into it. I've just seen our new governor, Bob Ferguson, saying he's kind of happy. But that was an old clip. I heard it passed, but we should talk about that next month or so. But anything you want to plug, Avin, before we leave?
Point everyone back to my YouTube channel. Obviously, the content there is a little bit older, but it's some of it's still quite relevant. Your Agent Guide. It just talks about tips for real estate for consumers, people buying or selling homes. And then, every once in a while, I'm a guest on Joe's other podcast, Gaming with Grief. It's been a while since I've done one of those, but Joe's passion is the gaming part of it. The politics part is just what we do for fun.
Well, we want to stay married. That's always our thing of like, we don't want to go in and rant to our wives anymore. When, I don't know about your wife, but my wife looks at me and says, maybe you should just like turn it off. Just turn off the news. And I'm like, you're probably right. I'm going to go play a video game. So yeah, well, everybody who joined us, old and new, I mean, subscriber-wise or listener-wise, thank you so much. I don't care what age you are. We will join you again next month with a new episode, and we'll see you guys then.